This is the classic mammal preparation. This is the skin plus skull. Historically, this has been done because people want to have something like the skin to look at variation in color pattern and proportions of the body. The skull also has a lot of characters. So let's get into it. All right, so I acquired a small mammal in my backyard. This is a black rat, Rattus rattus, common invasive species in North America. And I've already done a few things. I have already recorded basic information in my catalog, locality, date, basic measurements of the animal, total length, tail length, hind foot, ear, and mass, and sex. This is a male. And I also looked through the bag for ectoparasites like ticks and fleas and things, and remarkably, I did not find any. But those would be things that we would have collected and put into ethanol, little vials of ethanol like this that I carry in my kit. But once we get inside, maybe we could look around in the stomach and the intestines and see if there's anything interesting there too. All right, so we use a lot of sawdust, like you probably saw with the bird preparation, and that gets into the fur. And if there's any blood, this guy seems to have some kind of problem going on with his throat there. It'll soak up blood and fat and grease and things like that. So basically we're going to open up the animal along the belly and then try to keep that incision as small as possible, and then remove the entire animal, and then clean up the skin, and then put that skin over a cotton body, and also put in limbs and the tail. And I've already constructed these here. So I like to leave some of the bone attached here. It'll give a little bit more structure to the specimen. If we cut the bone right at the ankle, there wouldn't be very much holding it onto the body. There will be a wire that goes into the foot, but we're going to connect the bone at the bottom here to the wire, and that'll make for a much sturdier specimen. But this is the male. The phallus, in many cases, has a lot of characters on it that people are interested in for taxonomic reasons. There's also a baculum in there, and so sometimes with preparations you take it off and you preserve it in formalin. So I carry a little bit of formalin in my kit. So even these, what would be considered common, might have interesting stories that might tell us more about invasion of animals into North America that may be ongoing. Next up are the front limbs. So we're cutting off the ear canals. Next is a little bit more complicated. It's around the eyeballs, but I'm going to basically try to pull the eye out of the skull. Okay, the skin is off. We don't want to leave a lot of material on the inside. Much of this will dry just fine, but we do want to take a little time. Yeah, this animal had some kind of abscess on its throat, and that's left a hole, so we may have to stitch that up. But if you're on a collecting trip, you do want to be as efficient as possible and not have to spend a lot of time repairing damage that you've made. Yeah, so we're mostly done here with the skin. I don't want this to dry out. I'm going to sew both the mouth and that in a moment, but for the time being, I'm going to put this fur side out so that it doesn't dry out. There is our rat pelt, and we'll just roll this up a bit, and then we could just put it somewhere like under this sack of sawdust. Nowadays with so much genomic work going on, actually when I catch an animal, the first thing I do is euthanize it, tissue it, and then prepare the specimen later on. Yeah, so a good fraction of genes are expressed in the liver. It's a really good source of DNA. So I'm just going to throw this in the freezer real quick. And it has a barcode on it for tracking. These guys often have worms in the stomach, so we can take a quick look for that. So we'll save some of those. So this is a tube of 70% ethanol. All right, so on this animal, we also will record a couple of things. So for mammals, we typically record the shape of the testes. So this is 21 by 12, and then this is the seminal vesicle. So today we're just going to do the skin and the skull. We're not going to save any of this, but in other situations, I do stitch it up, attach a tag, put in a jar of formalin, and then later on it goes into the collection. But we do need to get this skull off. I've already made up tags for the skin and the skull. So this skull will stay, this tag will stay with the skull forever. It's going to go through a few different processes, and then it'll have the MVZ number added to the back of the skull tag. And then it'll come back and go into the collection, the bug colony here. All right, so that can just go to the side. That'll get washed and cleaned. This is just going to go to biohazard. Okay, so on to the skin preparation. We're back to our skin. There's a large hole in the throat. We should stitch that up a little bit and stitch up the mouth before we go any further. So I made some of my parts already. These are legs, and so these are pieces of wire that cotton has been wrapped onto, and it's just a process of making a small strip of cotton and then winding it on. So we have a relatively long tail that we have to use here. We actually want this to be a bit of the support for the structure of the specimen. So we're going to insert the front limbs first. All right. All right. So it looks like it's going to work out all right. Ears. And so we want to stretch out the skin, stretch out the face. As soon as we let go of the cotton is going to puff out, and then it'll be very hard to do any adjusting after that. All right, so we're going to release the hemostats. All right, starting to look like a rat. Now we put in the back leg. So I'll just do a little connection there. All right, so that goes in there and then it gets tucked up inside the hole. So I'm going to double check that this cotton is on very, very tight. If it's not on very tight, the cotton will just sort of accordion up, and that is something that is very difficult to fix. I'm just moistening the tip so it'll slide a little faster. There we go. Okay. We're going to keep the phallus on the outside. There we go. So we'll add the skin tag. So now we can pin it. Yeah, so animals have to be laid out to dry, and this is also an opportunity to adjust the proportions a bit if you didn't do things as you wanted. So part of having study skins is for comparison with lots and lots of other animals in our collection and other collections, and so we want the animal to be symmetrically pinned out, and the limbs pinned similar to how they are in other specimens. here we go. We can do a little bit of adjusting of how the skin looks. And you know, we look at it in different views. All right.